Let's get it on then, shall we? Mwah. Welcome to Sex on the Peach, your weekly hump day dose of everyone's favourite untalked about topic, sex. Let's get honest, let's get open, let's get comfortable, and let's get into this week's show. Friends, lovers, listeners, happy Wednesday, happy hump day, and happy Sex on the Peach day. I am very excited to share a conversation with you today that I had last year with Shakira Scott, also known as Scotty Unfamous, as she takes us through all the work she is currently doing in the sexual wellness space. Scotty's How to Live Your Best Heaux Life classes have been featured on the Evening Standard's Best Sex Workshops list, including her amazing Black Girl Magic workshops, which were set up to celebrate the sexuality of Black women and women of Black mixed origin, something we discuss further in today's episode as we delve into the fact that even today in 2024, the representation for minority communities in the UK still simply isn't really there. She's had one of her erotic romance novels adapted into a sold-out stage play. She is a sex toy connoisseur. I mean, she almost puts me to shame. She can tell you all about kinks most of us have never even heard of. The list honestly goes on. I cannot tell you how much I loved having this conversation with Scotty. She is engaging, informed, hilarious, inclusive, open-minded, and everything that we could want and need in a sex educator and influencer. We had so much fun, and I hope that you enjoy listening to her story, her thoughts, and her tips, tricks, and advice as much as I did. So, let's get into it. Here is Blink Twice if you like it. Scotty, it is gorgeous to have you. How are you doing today?
I'm doing lovely. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I'm very excited to talk about all of your work that you do within the sex space. So you are an erotic romance author.
Yes.
And a sexfluencer. So if I could just ask how you got into that journey in the first place, really.
Oh, this long story. Okay.
That's fine. We've got time.
Okay, so I started as a YouTuber originally back in like 2010. And then I decided to write this erotic story on like Facebook Notes. And I'm so old, revealing my age. Facebook Notes.
Me too.
And then it kind of went viral. And then a drama company picked it up and like made it into a play and stuff. And it sold out. I was like, oh, I could probably do this like real life. And then I think around 2017, obviously I'd been writing. I had won some literary awards. I had also made a web series out of the book, and then that ended up in like Vogue and Complex. I was like, oh, I'm so great. And then, but when everyone was like reading my stories and stuff, they would be like messaging me, and oh, like I had a wank. Sorry, am I allowed to?
Of course.
And, like, sorry, and stuff.
Of course.
Okay, yeah. Like, oh, I was like wanking to your sexy, and it was so great. I'm like, good for you. I love that for you.
You get yours, absolutely. That's what we're here for.
And then, yeah, around 2017, I saw an ad for a sex toy tester. And I was like, oh my God, like, that's a real job. I want to do that. So I applied and I didn't get it. I was like, well, they're rubbish because my audition tape was really good. So I was just like, fuck it, I'll just do it myself. And then I did.
And what is the criteria to be a sex toy tester?
I don't know, but apparently I didn't have it. So I was like, well, you're missing out because I'm fucking hilarious. So, yeah, and my approach to kind of doing, even stepping into the space, even from my writing and all the sex education and sex fluencing that I do now, is that I didn't see anybody in the sexual wellness industry who looked like me. Like I didn't see any black women. I didn't really see any plus size women there, especially like in the UK. So I was like, well, I'll do it. And then I also thought that a lot of people are quite clinical in their approach to sex education, and sometimes that's not like that relatable. You know, you had like sex ed in school, and it was like the penis goes in the vagina.
It's non-existent.
Yeah, it's like it's non-existent, and it's really bad, and it's so boring. I was like, well, I think I can like put it across pretty relatably. I'm already a storyteller, and I have no shame, and I like telling dirty jokes. So let's go. And yeah, that's basically how I kind of kicked off into it. And it's been going well so far.
Yeah, that is insane. And that's so cool that, I mean, how was it seeing your book as a play, seeing people act it out? Like, that must have been an amazing experience.
It was euphoric. I was like, oh my God. Look at my characters. They're so problematic. I love it.
Was anything in the story sort of based on any of your own experiences, or was it just sort of purely imagination based? Or?
So yeah, it was kind of taken from my experience. Okay. Obviously, like I said, I started doing YouTube, so I kind of got like a bit like, what do you call it, like bait. And I was always looking at these collective of what we now call like influencers and stuff as like famous people who aren't really famous. So then the book was called Unfamous, and because I was actually in the scene and got to like see the stuff behind the scenes, that everyone was kind of like, oh my God, everybody's so great. I was actually, they're not. So it's kind of, the story was a girl who kind of wanted to become an influencer basically.
Okay.
And how it interfered with like her love life was also like London is so small. Everybody knows everybody, and it's kind of like her whole drama trying to get there, trying to like reinvent herself, while also having some experiences. Yeah. Coming of age experiences.
It's a relatable story. And I mean, as you say, not seeing any women like yourself portrayed in the sexual space. And I think there's a huge space for conversation about the way that Black women have been sexualized so poorly across time in the media, in society. And I think it's so important. I think even just as a woman, as a vulva owner, it's such a hard thing to sort of feel empowered sexually anyway, because our sexuality has been so diminished for such a long time. But even more so for Black women. Yeah. And I saw that you just held a workshop, Black Girl Magic, which was specifically for Black women and women of Black mixed origin. And I just wanted to ask how that went and how amazing that must feel to have a collective of Black women come together and start to feel empowered in their sexuality. Like, how does that feel, being able to host something like that and know that you're contributing in such a massive way? And I think it's not a small thing to be giving women sexual confidence. That's a huge thing. So tell us a bit more about that and how it went.
So I've wanted to do a Black girl focus workshop for a while. I think part of me was like worried, like, are people going to feel alienated, or is my community even going to respond well to this? Sure. Because even though like I've been doing workshops, they're very mixed. Like I do have Black attendees, but I do find that a lot of my audience sometimes is more like white women, and then I will have like people of colour like sprinkled in it. So I was like, okay, so how is this going to go? Because I was thinking like culturally, I know that this isn't really something that we particularly speak about so freely. Yeah. So yeah, when I started doing it, I was like, okay, Black History Month's coming up. I'm just going to take the leap and do it and just hope for the best. And when everyone kind of started arriving, like I got such a cute venue as well, and I got loads of gifts, and I'm going to spoil them all. We even had like period products from like a Black-owned period company. So yeah, when everyone started turning up and sitting down and just kind of getting into it, it was like, okay, this is really happening. And it was just lovely. Yeah. I mean, they kind of let my schedule got away from me because they started getting into the conversations, but I kind of felt like the conversations are so organic and everyone's sharing so much stuff that they can all relate to. Like when one person shared something, somebody else was like, okay. I mean, I was bullying some of those. I was like, what do you think? Because I like everyone to get involved. But yeah, just the conversations that were had, and then like the sisterhood that they all kind of created. And then they were even saying to me, like, it's different to go to something that is just for us. It's like, didn't realize that this is something that we needed. Yeah. And obviously the conversations around sexuality, as you said, like for a woman already, or people with vulvas, it's already like sex. But then when you also take in race to it, it's like more culturally nuanced and stuff like that. Absolutely. So yeah, it was lovely. It was like one of my favourite ones that I've done. I was like so pleased, and they were all happy. Everybody got great goodie bags. They all drank drinks. Nobody broke anything this time, so that was good. That was great. But yeah, it was really fun.
It's so mad, isn't it, that you still felt nervous to sort of put something like that out because of other people feeling alienated. And I think we all, especially as women evolve owners, exist with a bit of a people pleaser inside us and like sort of worrying about things like that. But it's important for, you know, marginalised communities to come together and share those experiences. I mean, one of the things that I find most important talking about sex is because you find that no matter what you are talking about, no matter what experience you have had, whether you think it's weird or like whatever, you're never alone.
Yes.
But everyone thinks they are alone.
Yes.
Everyone thinks that whatever they are dealing with sexually, it's uncomfortable, you know, no one else is surely dealing with it, so I don't want to talk about it because then what if I'm the only person dealing with it and everyone looks at me and they're like, oh, you're weird, like what's wrong with you? Whereas the fact of the matter is, all the icky, like funky bits of sex, we've all been there, we've all experienced it. And I just think that getting those conversations out there and making sure everyone knowing that no matter what they've gone through, they're never alone is so important. And even more so for marginalised communities to know that there's so many other people who are there to support you and who have your shared experience. So I think it is so important to have those events, and I commend you for just going for it at such an amazing time and holding that. And do you think that's something that you're going to sort of like continue on?
Oh yeah, they've asked for more of them. I think that's something, like I like to do loads of interactive things in the workshop, and like you were saying, people thinking about like, oh, like maybe I'm the only person experiencing this, or like I feel weird that I want to do that. Like I always have these sections of the class, these like sexual confession sections, where everyone like writes their fantasies down, and I keep saying to everyone, like, everybody's disgusting. I know you think that what you like is bad, which is why I'm also like, oh guys, like, I'm into hentai. I love watching monster porn. It's the weirdest thing. So whatever you have, it's fine.
But it's not weird, is it? But that's the thing. We're so used to going, I like this and it's weird, but it's what's weird?
Nothing's weird because the stuff they were coming out with.
Sex is gay. Do you have a favourite confession that you've been given thus far on any of these events? One that's like stuck with you? Okay,
well I think the one from the last event that stuck with me was someone was talking about they wanted to like try knife play. Like, they wanted like a knife like held to their throat while they were being fucked, and I was like, wow, me too. That's great. So, so I think that one kind of stuck with me because it was like so out there. I get a lot of like threesomes or like I want to have sex with a woman. Everybody wants to have sex with a woman. So
exactly.
But I think that one, because I've never had anything like that before. It was like, okay, we're doing this. I love that for you guys.
It's nice when they get very specific.
Yes.
They're always the best ones. Do you feel that since you've sort of started, because I'm very open about sex on my social medias and things, and I've definitely had a mixed response. And how have you found, since you've been sort of open, and especially now with a bigger profile out there talking about all these things that so many people still think are taboo and uncomfortable, you know, how have you found the response? Do you find that people are, obviously you have a huge fan base and we're all here for everything that you were talking about, but I guess especially with men, because I balance between men being like, oh, that must mean she's really cool, and you're a low value woman because you talk about sex on social media. So what has sort of been like the response in general? Has it affected your dating life, your sex life? Like, how have you found being so open?
Okay, so in terms of like the audience, I think when it comes to like men, I have like male followers, and some of them are like, oh my god, like you're teaching me so much about women and people with vulvas, like this is great. And then obviously you get the ones that send you dick pics. It's like, oh, she talks about sex, she must want to fuck everybody, especially me. So yeah, there's that. In terms of my dating life, I've been with my partner for 7 years. He like knows what I do. He's supportive of it. Obviously we do have conversations about like, I'm thinking of exploring this. How do you feel about that? Because obviously you have to be respectful. I'm not just like out here and it's like just me.
Sure.
And then in terms of, who was the other thing you asked about? My brain's a bit.
No, that's fine. I mean, it was more of how it impacted your sex life, I guess.
Oh, my sex life.
The more open you are, the more opportunities I feel come your way. You know, since I started speaking about it, there's toys coming at me. There's sex event companies asking me to, you know, I mean, I feel like many more doors of exploration start opening.
Yes.
And has that, you know, how have you found that?
That has been fantastic. Because I think I've always just been interested in sex beyond the vanilla.
Yes, of course.
So I think with doing this, as I'm teaching them, I also get to learn more things. I mean, as you said, like you're exposed to like different events and stuff. So now like I've tried sex parties and it's like, oh, like something I thought was going to be really scary is not. I've always had an interest in kink, and now I'm able to like proper like delve into it. And I get all like the cute outfits. Like I've got like loads of like vloggers and stuff. Sex toy wise, I get to try like the most amazing things. Like I get sent stuff. I'm like, this is my job.
You're like, what does this even do?
Exactly. Like it's just really fun. I think it's allowed me to be even more sexually open.
Yeah.
And I think also within the community of like other sexual wellness content creators, you get to have more conversations. Like, you know, I have friends now who are like sex workers and stuff, and people who are doctors, and because everything's kind of so normal in our bubble, it just kind of makes me feel comfortable. When I come out and I'm like, oh yeah, I did this, and people are like, oh my God. I'm like, no, it's fine. But yeah, I think it's vastly improved my sex life. Yeah, I do a lot of things, and I think I'm very happy about that.
That you might have thought before this happened, oh, that might be something I'd like to try, but I might be too nervous to.
Yeah, literally. And now, and I think also, having a partner as well helps with it as well.
Sure.
Like when we initially met and we were having conversations about having sex, which was something I hadn't really done before. We just kind of like just jumped into it and we're having sex. But
and dealt with it later.
Yeah. And then it's like, okay, what do you like doing in bed? I like doing this. And then he was like, I have a thing for feet. And I was like, great, you have a kink. Well, I like being choked and spanked. And
Yeah.
So he's like, oh, okay, cool. So
yeah,
I think it's really helped in that way.
I think one of the reasons that sex suffers is because it's a product of bad communication or no communication. And I think that is what needs to be, well, consent first, but communication is what needs to be the prime focus of sex education in schools.
Yes.
Letting people know, well, just opening up the conversation when you first start dating someone. You know, you might start saying, what's your favourite meal? What's your favourite movie? No one ever says, what's your favourite sex position?
Exactly.
But that stuff is important.
Very.
And sex drives, you know, like navigating those within partners, because you might meet someone with a significantly different sex drive to you, and like, that's something that has to be navigated. Yeah. And so many people just ignore it and they think we'll figure it out later down the line.
That's fine.
Then you're 5 years down the line and you have never had a conversation about sex.
Or an orgasm.
Do you find, because I find this, do you find that you get a lot of people writing to you saying, I've never had an orgasm?
Yeah. And it's literally like, well, it's because we weren't really taught about female pleasure in sex education. Like we said, like it is very much of the penis goes in the vagina, you get an STI, you have your period, you get pregnant. That's it.
There are products of sex.
Yeah.
And it's not pleasure.
Exactly. Like there's never been any focus on how to navigate that properly. So, and I think as well with like things like cultural, religious, societal shame, especially stuff that's impacted a lot on people with vulvas. Yeah. It's like there's the physical blocks because the people that you're sleeping with don't even know really what to do with you. And then there's the mental blocks that you have in yourself because you're like told like, no, I shouldn't do this. Like I even have like loads of people writing like, oh, like I feel weird when I masturbate. Like I don't feel like I should touch myself, or like, oh, I don't do that because it's just for my man. It's like, does your man make you come there? And it's like, it's like, exactly. Like, and I think something I'm always saying to people as well when it comes to having good sexual experiences is you have to know your own body.
Yes.
And this is also going to like tie back into communication, because you can't communicate what you like or what you need if you don't even know it yourself. And this person doesn't know you. They don't know what you feel like when they touch you. So like, even though the responsibility is on them to also make sure that you are tended to, you also have that responsibility yourself.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I answered the question. I feel like I went off on a little tangent.
No, the tangents are the best, because I completely agree. And anytime I get asked things, even if someone's had a breakup and they are nervous about then being sexual with a new person, my advice is always, please bring it back to yourself.
Yes.
Spend some time with yourself, you know, and that's not just like lying in bed and shoving a sex toy under the covers. Create sexy environments for yourself.
Yes.
You know, give yourself some nice lighting, put on your favourite lingerie, light some candles that smell good or some oils, put some sexy music on, and like give yourself the sexy time that you deserve, because
people don't really romance themselves. They just think like when it's themselves, it has to be like a quick like done. It's like, no, like I masturbate for hours, and people are like, that's really ridiculous. I'm like, okay, but my orgasms are great. So
you're like, when I've edged myself
for
multiple
for
hours,
like 4 hours, and I finally come. Like, it's just spectacular. You would love it, so you should try it. Yeah.
There's definitely space for the 1 minute orgasms. You know, when we're in a rush, we don't have much time.
Exactly.
You know, there's toys that will do that for you. What's your favourite kind of, if you have one?
A favourite kind of toy?
Yeah.
I think I love clitoral suction toys. I just think they're
God's
brilliant.
tier.
But if I couldn't have that, maybe like a dual stimulator, like a G-spot and clit stim, like a rabbit kind of vibe. Those ones, I think they are the best.
I do think that the clitoral suction toys, what a time to be alive, honestly, to be around when these have been invented, because
Literally.
I thought I was having like a really good sex toy time, and then those came out and I was like, this has changed everything.
Yes.
And it does mean, and I say to my single friends, you can have an absolutely thriving sex life and only be having sex with yourself. I promise, especially with these toys. Yeah. In fact, it might actually put you off going out, and especially if you are straight, it might put you off going out and meeting more men or penis owners, because these toys are going to do it for you in a way that they just can't. And that's no shame. I just think that there's so much more space for exploration for women in that space, which is so important, because women have been told, lie there and take it.
Yeah.
For God knows how long. Although we do need to bring up Pillow Princess Gang. Because I did see that on your social media, and it made me want to give a shout out to one of my best friends, Dev, if you're listening, because she is the ultimate pillow princess. But I just am obsessed with your post about aggressively avoiding getting on top by giving 5-star fellatio.
Yes.
Hashtag Pillow Princess Gang. I was like, that's one of my favourite posts I think I've ever seen.
No, literally, I love just like laying there, because the thing is, I put in a lot of work beforehand. I don't want to do more work now. Like I know, like, brag about it, but I'm really good at giving head. So I just feel like, okay, you've had the best head you're ever gonna have of your life. So now give me the best dick I've ever had of mine.
There we go.
Balance.
It is absolutely mutual reciprocation.
Yes.
What would be your top tips for giving head as a 5? Let's go 10-star head giver.
10-star head giver. Okay. Oh, pressure. Okay. So I think my first thing is to be attentive.
Yes.
Like pay attention to any sounds. And I mean, that's a bit annoying because some guys just don't make sounds. And please, men, if you're listening, please moan, please.
Or give us some bodily cues. Yes. Just anything.
Like blink twice if you like it. But yeah, just like paying attention to like their body. I think another thing to do is take your time to like get to the like tip of the penis. You know, like how I was saying, like doing the edge. Yeah, there's no rush. Like the whole body is covered in erogenous zones. Don't just go straight for the dick. I mean, you can sometimes, but if you want to do really good head, don't go straight for it. Like let it build up. So they're like, shit, when is she gonna touch it? When is she gonna touch it? Finally, yes. Another thing, breathe through your nose. And I think the best way to do that is when you are putting it in your mouth, you don't have to wrap your lips around it. This is like a deep throat thing, by the way. You don't have to wrap your lips around it. Keep your mouth open and drop your tongue down so that there's sort of like a pocket of air at the top of your mouth. And you have to angle them, depending on like the dick width and stuff. You need to like angle them so that you can actually breathe through your nose. Once it's there, it's fine. Another thing is, try not to panic. No, because you know sometimes it gets in like and you start gagging and all that. It's like, no, like mentally.
It gets intense. There's just a lot going on, like sensory overload.
Just mentally be like, I'm fine. This is fine. I'm not going to die, you know. And another thing I would say is incorporate your hand into it. Like also like check if they're like their balls grabbed. But yeah, like touch their balls, give them a little tug, a stroke.
Help yourself out. Yeah. Give yourself some assistance.
Yes, play with the perineum if they're into that. If they're into having the finger up their ass or something, try that too. Obviously, check all of this beforehand.
Of course.
This is getting very graphic.
No, this is what the people want, because I think that people are still nervous to sort of, especially when my tagline about sex in general is it's a collaboration, not a performance. Mm-hmm. So even when you are actively giving a partner oral sex, it's still not one person performing. It's a collaboration. You're in it together, and I still think so many people are scared to explore that side of things. And some people might have male and penis owner partners who like a toy involved, yes. like when it's like a vibrator, and there's so many things that you can try. I heard one sex educator say that when she's giving a blowjob, she holds a vibrator on her cheek so that like her mouth. They
actually
is sort of
have one that does that now, that you can like hook in your mouth. Yeah, I saw it the other day.
Have you tried it?
I haven't, but I'm going to buy it.
You're like, but I will.
Oh, that looks okay.
You're like, does it look cute?
It doesn't look cute. It looks like do you remember from Star Trek? Was it Seven? I don't know if you don't remember that. There was like a cyborg woman. She's really sexy, but it's given Seven.
Okay, that sounds okay. I'm here for it. I'm here for a sexy cyborg. Okay, yes. So we're giving sexy cyborg blowjobs now.
Yeah, role play.
Let's give it a go. Good to hear. I mean, yeah, I do think that we just have to keep exploring. We have to keep playing. And on the flip side, what tips would you give to anyone going down on a vulva? Because I think there's a lot to be learned.
Okay, the whole alphabet thing, let that go. Nobody wants you to write stuff with your tongue.
I don't think anyone's ever done that.
But I always see it as a tip, like, because no one's done it to me. Why would you do that? But I know it's like a thing for some people, like, spell the alphabet. No, don't do that. Okay, so the whole vulva has nerve endings in it. Like, play with the entire thing, like the labia majora, the labia minora, like go for all of it. The clitoris is sensitive at different points, so like doing that kind of like whirlpool, like circular tongue action thing, that's great. Also, once you find something that she likes, don't stop doing that. You don't need to do anything fancy. You don't need to write your name or whatever. Just do whatever you are doing and keep doing that.
Pay attention.
Yes.
Again, to the bodily cues or the noises, whatever, because there's nothing worse. And you're like, well, like, that's gone.
Yeah, like when you were like almost there, like, yes, don't. Okay. And then you have to like
to
reset.
Square one.
Yeah, it's so annoying. Also, like, incorporate your hands. As we were saying, sex toys, incorporate sex toys. Oh my goodness. Yes. Do that. Blended orgasms are fantastic.
Yeah.
Also, as I said, with before, the whole body has erogen zones. Like, while you're doing it, I don't know, stroke her thighs, play with her nipples if you can reach up or whatever, choke her if you can. There's so many things that you can do. As you said, the whole exploring. Yeah. Just try things. I think that's something that will be very useful for both sides as well. Is I always encourage people to like keep sex diaries, especially if you find it difficult to talk to your partner about sex. Sure. So what you do is like after sessions, you write things that you did like and you write things you didn't like, things you want to try, and then you just put the book down, and your partner can come at another time, look in it and be like, okay, yeah, he, she, they like this.
That's a gorgeous idea. That's such a nice idea, because I always do try and say, if people have sexual check-ins with their partner, give it, I really like this. Can we try this? But I also really like this, because it's still a sensitive, there's no way to get around. Yeah. It's always going to be a sensitive conversation to have, unless you are, so comfortable with your partner. You can be like, babe, just do not ever do that again, please. But and I try and say, a compliment sandwich around a sex conversation is always so helpful. But that is such a gorgeous idea. I've never even thought of something like that. And maybe it will help introduce especially if it's something you're both hesitant about in the beginning, just sort of like starting out that way might then at least introduce people to start talking about it, because I think that's half the battle. Yeah,
because I think it does kind of like nudge them to actually have a talk, like, oh, so you said that you did like this thing, like what did you like about it? Do you get what I mean? I think, and doing it constantly just gets you into the habit of doing it, and then saying it verbally kind of becomes a bit less daunting, because you're like, well, why are we writing it down when we're sitting here? We could just talk. Yeah,
and it just becomes like second nature. Yeah. Like, as much you might have a chat about what you're going to cook for dinner.
Yes.
What we're going to do in the bedroom, or whatever room in the house, What would you say is like your favourite thing to teach? If you were going to teach people about, is there like a specific, because I always feel so passionate teaching about masturbation personally, because I just think it's so important, and especially as women and vulva owners, we were just never taught that was a thing, and it was just, it's a huge thing for most women's sexual awakening at any age, But if you were going to teach something specifically, what would be your favourite thing to teach?
My favourite thing to teach is actually like the whole unlearning shame bit.
Yes.
Like that is, I think that once people are able to move past whatever blockages that they have, and that the worrying about getting validation from other people, if it's okay for you to like certain things, I think that is like one of the biggest hurdles that they can kind of move past. And once they've done that, it's like they're more open to exploring other things naturally. I think shame just takes so much joy from sex.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I guess it's my whole thing's like giving joy back. Like, it's okay to like what you like. It's okay to want this. It's okay to identify as this, to like him, her, them. Whatever you want, it's your life. You have one to live. Just go for it. Yeah.
Gorgeous. I feel like the sex educational space, because it is so shit in school, even still, you know, and I've done some qualifications in it, and still some of the things we are and aren't allowed to teach make no sense to me. And I do feel like the sex educational space is moving to social media to sort of look for assistance so that we don't have to learn via porn, which, you know, porn has its place, but I don't think it's the place to learn how to do the basic things. How do you feel about that? Do you sort of like, when you look around, do you see sex educational material that you find is helpful? Are you seeing things that are more harmful? Like, what are your thoughts on that sex educational space moving to social media?
I think in terms of it moving to social media, I'm glad that it is, because social media is somewhere that's, you know, very mainstream, and there's so much nonsense on there. So if we actually have people who actually know what they're talking about teaching stuff, I feel like that's better, because it's going to be more organic for people to come across, and then maybe think like, oh, I can see my friend is following, so I will also follow her. Now you can't judge me. But I think in terms of how it's going in schools, I mean, I've taught in like colleges and stuff, and I think there's still so much pushback from like some parents and obviously some like politicians and just different groups online.
Yes, very much.
That they think that, oh, like this is too much to teach people, especially like anything surrounding anything queer. They're very, oh no, what are you doing? You're forcing it down their throats. Meanwhile, every day, have you got a girlfriend? Like, So in terms of that, I think because of the pushback is making it difficult to get the correct messages across. But I think the efforts that the sexual wellness and medical communities are making to put that stuff on the curriculum, because it's like not all parents feel comfortable discussing this stuff with their kids, and because of that, kids are, as you said, like going to look at porn, and then they're learning the wrong things. And even like, for example, on TikTok, I remember there was this whole trend of this, there was this boy, and he was like, had these like girls lined up, and he was like ripping their shirts off, and that was like a thing. And like TikTok were leaving the videos up, and then meanwhile I'm here talking about this is how you can rim somebody hygienically, and they were like, no.
I was going to ask actually specifically about censorship. Like how, because some of the stuff, I put up some pretty basic stuff, and it's like, sorry, no, your account can't be recommended to non-followers. And I'm like, this is like basic sex knowledge. Like, how do you, obviously with like a higher profile, do you face that a lot? Do you get a lot of it from Instagram and TikTok? Because they seem determined to make sure that people do not learn about how to have safe and pleasurable sex.
Yeah, so I think, well, both platforms are annoying. But TikTok is worse. Like, that actually like closed down one of my accounts, and I had to start from the beginning.
Wow, okay.
So that was jarring. Instagram obviously has, so we're not recommending, I don't give a fuck. Okay. My whole thing has been to just make content that people find shareable and entertaining anyway. So even if you are blocking me, they're going to post it to their stories. It's funny, and it's also educational. Look. And
it's engaging. Yeah.
I think the censorship is irritating because, you know, there was like, oh, you can just piss off and go to your own platforms and teach people there. And it's like, but people don't want to necessarily join these sex-only platforms. To them, that might seem a bit seedy. So if it's integrated into something that they're already on, it's kind of like, oh, it normalizes the conversations. And I think when they're like, oh, we don't want this stuff on our platforms because because of children and stuff, you have a age restriction setting on there. Just do that, implicate that, and stop lying. Oh, it's because of that. No, it's not. It's because if it becomes too sexy, your like credit card people are gonna be like, no, we're not gonna allow you to like fund your shops.
They can't monetize things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think that they need to set up better systems that, like I said, have the age restriction and stuff in schools. I think they still need to keep pushing for sex education to happen, and obviously it has to be age appropriate for each group, because people are like, oh, like why are like primary school kids learning about sex? They need to know what their body parts are. They also need to learn about consent and how to feel comfortable like talking about something that's gone wrong. Because when we talk about sex education, I think everybody automatically goes to like, fucking da 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 da, and it's like, no. There's like periods, there's going through puberty, like there's so many things at each stage that they're going to need to learn about.
And teaching about STIs sensitively.
Yes.
You know, not
being like, oh, it's dirty, you're dirty.
Like it's so like common for people to catch it. It's like so many other infections, like tonsillitis, you know what I mean? It's like so many. If your throat can get infected, so can your genitals, surprise, surprise, and you take some antibiotics and you're good, you know? And it's so poor that it's taught as like this absolutely taboo, shameful thing that if you've caught an STI, then you are...
Like, you need to learn about that. Another thing is HPV. Like, literally, I think about that, is it 80% of people will just end up with HPV?
I didn't even know about that until I was in my mid-20s.
I know, and neither did I. Like, until I started doing this job, I was like, what? And they're like, oh, but we wear condoms. Yeah, but if there's like a bit of space at the bottom of the condom, like the skin-on-skin contact, that's all it needs. And then obviously that... people with vulvas can be tested for it. People with penises can't. Like, they don't really show symptoms.
Yeah.
That it can lead to like cervical cancer. So there's so much things that people don't know, and they should. And the fact that even you and I are saying like, oh, until like we got to this age, and because like we went and sorted it out of our own like, is it volition?
Or you go to, or because you've gone to a gynecologist appointment and they've told you, and you're like, what's that?
Yeah.
And you're like, why don't I know what's going on in my own body?
Exactly.
And that's why I think, obviously, when we talk about self-exploration, obviously, we can only really explore, you know, the external, you know, pretty much physical side of things. Yeah. But why are we not taught exactly what is going on inside of our bodies? Why are we not taught about dopamine and oxytocin and the reason why we might feel a certain way when we first start hanging out, like, in a cute way, you know, with someone, and you're like, oh, why do I feel like that? Because we're not even taught that half of these feelings that we have towards people romantically and sexually are literally science.
Yeah.
and like, that is wild. And like, so much of sex, there's so much science behind it, and we're like not taught about any of that. And that's wild, because why am I learning about the cycle of a cloud and I'm not being taught what's going on inside my own body? Like, it's insanity.
Even like things like I know there's like a lot of discussion around like periods online right now, and people saying that, oh, like they're actually not supposed to be painful, and everyone's like, what do you mean? Of course they are. I was like, no, they're not. Like, there are so many different things that like we could have, like PCOS, endometriosis, all of these different things, and it's like some people have never even heard of them. And then once they finally find out, and it's like, okay, now we know that this is wrong with you, this is what we can do to treat it. It's like, oh my god, like this is such a relief, like my periods aren't as painful or they aren't as heavy. Like, I don't know.
It definitely needs an overhaul.
Yes.
Do you feel like you're starting to see a bit more diversity across the board? Because as you said, when you started out, you weren't seeing any other women who look like you. Are you sort of starting to see a bit, do you think that more black women or black mixed origin women are feeling more comfortable to sort of start coming forward and at least feeling empowered to talk about things? Or do you feel like it's still a very white dominated space?
I feel like it's still a very white dominated space. But I feel like that's a UK thing.
Right.
Because I taught a workshop in Washington in March, and like there were like so many black sex educators.
Wow.
And it was like, and they were like, oh, what's it like in London? I said, it's nothing like this. Because, like, to this day, there's still a lot of times where I will go to events and stuff, and like, I'm the only black person in the room.
Wow, okay.
And it's like, okay. Like, I try to bring people along as well, like, that are sex educators as well, and be like, come to this, get to know these people, so, like, we can make it a bit more, like, diverse. I think there's still a lot of work to go in that respect. I mean, we have a rise of, I guess, like more doctors in the medical fields teaching sex. I think there are more black women in that space, but in like the pleasure space
and speaking so openly about it,
not so much.
How did you feel when you did start out? Did you feel sort of quite alienated and being like, I guess I'm really going to do this. I'm going to go public with it? Or have you always been someone who sort of felt empowered in your self-confidence of being like, no, fuck this shit. Like, no one else is speaking about it. I'm going to do it, you know?
I think it's been a mix of both. When I really decided to like start when I was writing books, it was like, it's a book, nobody cares, it's romance. Everybody knows women read smutty things all the time. When I really stepped into the sex education and sex worker side of it, and obviously was doing it in my style, I kind of had to sit there like, if you do this, like, that's it. Like, you have to do this because you can't get a corporate job after this bitch. This is the end of the line. So, but then I was kind of like, well, do you know what? Here's the perks. You'll be like a niche, so maybe you'll get lots of work. And but just also on the other side, it was, who else is there? Like, there's you and like a few others.
Yeah.
Just do it. Maybe the way that you are going to communicate things is really going to make a difference for somebody else that couldn't be reached by other people. So, yeah, it was just kind of, and I think also just doing YouTube and stuff and just dealing with like people online and how they are, I was just kind of, I don't really give a shit at this point.
Dealing with the keyboard warriors of the world.
Yeah,
it's never ending.
People were like, oh, you're oversexed stuff and da-da-da-da, and you're so stuffy. I'm like, thank you. I tried.
Thanks. That's what I'm going for, actually.
That's my whole thing. Slut.
But I think that like your sort of candid way of just like saying things as they are is the appeal, because like people just don't find it that easy to say things like that. It's always shrouded in, you know, and I get it. We grew up, especially here, in such a stifled society. Yes. But if people want to say something, they feel like they have to shroud it in so many other things to sort of get the point across. And it is so refreshing when someone's just like, this is how it is. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I think that's such a huge thing. And also, I don't know if this is a word, I don't know if poussoir comes from censorship, but it is a word I'm going to take with me.
I love that.
I was always saying vagine, but I think poussoir might overtake it. I'm a big fan. Before we start to wrap up, I just want to ask, what is your biggest ick?
My biggest ick? What, like in the bedroom?
Yeah, or whatever you feel, I guess, if you were to meet someone, something random that they could do to completely turn you off.
When people chew with their mouth open, like my ear, like, I don't know, I have like this visceral reaction to, I hate it. I think that's my biggest ick.
Yeah, fair, understandable. And on the flip side, what is your biggest non-sexual turn on?
Oh, when someone's like smart or funny. Like if people can like teach me stuff. Like, yeah, I get into that. I'm like, oh, tell me about the rockets. And
take me to a pub quiz and get all the answers right.
Yes. What's 2 + 2? Wow. But yeah, I think intelligence and sense of humour is like a big thing for me.
Absolutely. I think like sense of humour is, I'm going to say like number one for me. Like if someone can make me laugh, I'm like, I'm yours. Take me to the bed. Is there anything that's currently on your sexual bucket list?
There are several things. I'm thinking which one is most appropriate to tell you.
They're all appropriate here. It's a safe space.
I think I want to like rent out a dungeon and just like
host your own sex event.
No, I want to be used.
Oh, okay, fine.
Strap me to everything, hit through with everything, leave me in there for hours in the dark. Like,
you mean a strong sub, strong sub in a dungeon?
Yeah,
nice.
That's what's like top of my bucket list. I would love that.
Okay,
if you're listening, you asked what I wanted to do for my birthday.
You're like, it's coming up. Get looking up dungeons. How would you describe your sexual personality in 3 words?
Passionate.
Yeah.
A bit silly. And attentive.
Yeah. Nice. Perfect. Passionate's on mine as well. I always think that's a good one. I'm right there with you. And lastly, what is your top sex tip?
My top sex tip. just do it. That's my tip. Just do it. And find out if you like it or not afterwards.
Just go for it.
Go for it. If you have it in your mind and someone's consented to it and you're going to be safe and you think you might enjoy yourself, just give it a go. Maybe you will like it, maybe you won't. At least you tried it and now you know.
Yeah. I think we get so caught up in good and bad. Like people look at, when you've had sex with someone for the first time, people go, was it good? And I think then that gets into people's heads and they go into sexual encounters thinking, I have to be good because I can't be bad. And I want to get rid of that language. I'm like, we can have sex that works for us or doesn't.
Yes.
But that doesn't mean that someone else is a good or bad. Good or bad in bed. It's giving teenage. But yeah, I'm here for it. Absolutely. When someone has consented, hopefully you've communicated what you want.
Yes.
Please do.
Please
go for it and get a toy involved. Scotty, thank you so much for joining us today. You've been an amazing guest, and thank you so much for everything that you are doing in the sexual space, and I'm wishing you all the best with all your future endeavours and all of the Black Girl Magic workshops and wherever that takes you. And you know what? Fingers crossed for your birthday dungeon. Thank you. What a fucking dreamboat. Honestly, I could have chatted to Scotty for hours. And let me tell you, blink twice if you like it is staying for all of you who like to play silent library out there. I hope that you all enjoyed listening to Scotty's journey and her insights, and please do check her out on both Instagram and TikTok at Scotty Unfamous, because her content is so informative but in a very digestible way, which is always helpful for those amongst us who may lean towards a more vanilla taste palette, or for anyone who might feel a bit nervous about exploring something new. Next episode is the 5th of this season, so it's time for this season's Ask Peach, which means that the doors are open for any and all of your questions about any topic in the sex and relationship space. And I will also be catching up on any questions that have been sent through since the last Sunday spooning session. Nothing is too uncomfortable, nothing is too taboo, so no matter what it is, whatever is on your mind, send it over and I will help in whatever way I can. I will see you very soon, but for now, thanks for coming. Thank you for tuning in to Sex on the Peach today, and I hope that you enjoyed this week's episode. You can find and follow me on Instagram, YouTube and TikTok at Sex on the Peach Cast, and you can also get in touch with me at sexonthepeachcast@gmail.com. Please do continue to like, share, subscribe, rate and review wherever you listen to your podcasts, and I'll see you next week. Love, Peach.